Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Modcast, episode 48. We're doing it, and Wu is dead now. He's been thrown off the edge. The Wu you see in the show is just a ghost of his former self. On that note, I'm Waj.
Slime!
I am anonymous. No one knows who I am because it's been so long since I've been on.
We're all enthusiasts, I guess, of Lego, and so I was wondering, what do you guys actually do with your Lego? Or I guess, what did you do when you were a kid with your Lego?
Somewhere around 2010, I want to say, or maybe 2011.
Oh yeah, at the demise of G1?
At the demise of G1, and at the beginning of Hero Factory, I started getting into this phase where I would build combo models, taking two sets and then combining them. I think the origins of that, at least as far as Hero Factory goes, I know it was specifically with my 1.0 sets because I knew that the pieces were so brittle, I didn't want to take them apart. I had to think of ways to combine them in unique and interesting ways without actually removing any joints. And it was all for naught because I think I've mentioned it before on the Hero Factory podcast. My friend was like, "Oh, I have a way you can take them apart without breaking them." And I was like, "Okay." And then he took them apart and then they broke.
All the pieces snapped. Yeah, sad. But did you ever make the combiner models for Bionicle?
That was another factor too, was just making the O1 combiners and stuff like that, like all the instructions that they had online. I don't think I ever made much of the combiner models from 2006 onward, especially 2008 onward, because obviously brittle joints.
Yeah, for me, I remember making most of the combiner models from 02 to 04. I'd made Ultimate Dume and the Rakshi combiners. I always wanted the Kardas Dragon though. That looked really awesome.
My favorite Bionicle set growing up as a kid was my Kardas Dragon. I never bought Brutaka, Vezon, and Fenrak and Axon individually.
You got the big box?
Yeah, the big box.
Man. I always wanted that. I never found it though. I only got Vizon and Fenrak. I love the fact that when you got them separately, the combiner instructions were at the back of the model that you got, but a third of it. So you would have to put together all of the instructions to get the full thing for the combiner.
They stopped doing that at a certain point. I think it was 2006 because the instructions for Vezon and Kardas were specifically for Vezon and Kardas. They didn't come with instructions for Axon, Brutaka, and Vezon Fenrak.
I guess as well, with combiner models, oftentimes they won't use all of the pieces. So with the big boxes, they might just have omitted pieces that were in Axon or Brutaka and just were the ones that contributed to the Kardas Dragon. But yeah, what do you consider as a combiner? Do you ever go through percentages of pieces used in two sets or more? What's your metric for combining two things? Because I actually have delved now into system alt models,
which is a very similar.
Yeah, it's a very similar type of thing where you're constrained by the pieces in the set and you can't use anything else.
I don't have a specific metric or anything like that, but I do tend to be using a decent amount of parts from both or however many sets. Because obviously you have to draw the line somewhere and you say, okay, this is Kopaka 2015 with Kopaka 2016's sword. Is that a combiner model? Technically speaking, yes, but I don't consider it as such because you're not really combining the two sets. You're just taking one aspect from one and transplanting it to another. Anything more than 6 sets, I feel really isn't a combiner model at that point. I feel it's just a mock that's using pieces. It varies depending on the size because obviously if you're making something like a Toa Nui and you are able to equally represent 6 different figures in a single model and it's huge, then okay, yeah, I get that. But it's just if you're building it and you're using 3 parts from one set, is that really a combiner model? No.
Right. I guess there'd need to be a pretty sort of equal distribution of parts used in sets. 6 seems kind of arbitrary, but I do understand at a certain point then it just becomes a regular mock. You could keep that constraint of only using parts from a set amount of sets. But yeah, it depends on the distribution. Because the Makuta model is technically a combiner.
Yeah, I consider that to be a combo model because despite it using pieces from a lot of different sets, it still pretty equally uses pieces from all of them. To my knowledge. I've never built it. But
no, yeah, me neither.
It's not like you're using Ikir just for one gray bushing. I mean, there's at least a couple pieces in there that's used. Obviously, not all pieces are going to be used, and that's what I've discovered, especially when you're dealing with two sets that have clashing color schemes. You're not going to be able to fit everything, or even sometimes equally, without it looking horrendous.
That definitely makes sense. Because, yeah, doesn't the Makuta model use Umarak the Destroyer, which has, like, lime green, and lime green is nowhere to be found.
Now, the way that I approach LEGO is the way that I approach a lot of the things that I get, which is they have to be useful to a certain extent for me to justify getting it. Useful to me might not be useful to other people. So, like, for example, a lot of the things that I get are for the funnies, for the memes. So, recently, I went ahead and I went on to Bricklink and I was like, hey, I wonder how much Galidor pieces are. I went ahead and I purchased the parts for Nick, Bluetooth, and Gorm and bought them, and now I own them. Currently, they're sitting as display pieces on my windowsill, but I didn't buy them for the sake of them being display pieces. I bought them for the sake of memes, so that I could use it in something. I don't know what. Something in the future.
For, like, a video, you mean?
Yeah.
I can understand that. That makes sense. I'm curious, though, like, how much were the Galidor parts?
Not expensive at all, actually. I think Galidor is a lot cheaper because it's so specialized, and if you buy a Nick Bluetooth's arm, you can't really use it for anything else that's not an arm, unless you're very creative. I mean,
Yeah, there have been, Nick Voss and Tooth Dominoes. They've been posting on Bird Chatterer their various Galidor mocks, and they have been pretty cool. They've got some, like, interesting creatures that they've made out of the parts. But, like, for a lot of them, you'd need a ton of the same kind of arm piece or leg piece or whatever, or torso.
or you'd need pieces from a set that had a limited release. Looking at you, a quart. So this set had a limited release.
Oh, good.
And if you look at,
why?
like,
Did you know why?
I don't know, man. Because Galidor was awful and probably didn't sell well, and they had to cancel some stuff. Like, there's a...
What? Galidor was the best LEGO theme of all time. Be quiet, you blasphemer.
It's gonna come back, though, right? It's gonna come back 2020?
2020. Galidor 2020. Make it happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
We were supposed to get a shark on a motorcycle. Shark. It was a shark motorcycle.
Ooh. Actually, I mean, that sounds kind of cool. Wait, a shark? Wait.
It
like
looked
a shark
cool.
riding a motorcycle or a shark as a motorcycle?
A shark that was a motorcycle. A shark
Okay.
motorcycle.
No, that makes sense.
That gives a whole new meaning to jumping the shark.
I guess.
Oh my.
But yeah, John, you're a person. You have Lego. What do you do with your Lego?
I let it sit and gather dust in places where light can reflect off it and reach my eyeballs and let me become sad at how much dust it's collecting.
You display stuff, though, right? Like, all of that,
Yeah.
that stuff in the box is stuff that you just don't have room to display.
Yeah, I have an embarrassingly giant collection, especially of Bionicles. And I don't know, I probably have like 2/3 of my sets on display. When I was a kid, I did all the usual stuff. I'd combine them and have them have giant battles with each other. But alas, not anymore.
You have a lot of system, though, right? Like, then you have, like, a lot of, like, castles.
Yeah, I have a giant castle and I have some Star Wars stuff.
Did you ever combine your Star Wars characters and your castle?
Not really. For the most part, I kept my castle and my Star Wars segregated from each other.
Harsh
I don't know.
divides.
Yeah.
Just like lines in the bricks.
I also bought a bunch of city police sets to like go in between the Star Wars and the castle sets and like beat them back if they tried to intermingle. No, not really.
That would be great. Like, you just have police officers at the border between Star Wars land and, and like castle.
John, didn't you make like a massive mega castle by combining all your castles?
Yep. I said, yo dog, I heard you like castles, so here's a castle made out of castles.
Recently, I went to the convention in Toronto in July. I met up with Lego Master and finally got into System. It's been several years since I've ever done anything with System. Like, I was pretty much like a pure construction person and now own 5 system sets, most of them being like space sets. And what I've been doing recently is making alternate models, basically trying to use all the pieces to make something different out of the set. I've made 2 so far. I made this one thing out of this sort of like research station, and I made a weird spooky ghost mech out of it. It's like call him Spookum McDookum. I don't really have any backstory for this. I was just kind of like trying to combine the pieces into something. Like I started out with the face. I just wanted it to have like a kind of cartoony look. The other one I've made is like a spaceship. I call it the Spice Ship because it's from the Spirius line. It was from this like robot, basically, like this robot on treads. I made this like spaceship with foldable wings. The set had a pretty small quantity of red pieces. I tried to condense them into one area and like really try to keep the black pieces and the red pieces separate. I basically made like this flame out of the red pieces. I used to mock with Constraction, but that was years ago, and I still haven't gotten back into it. Maybe I will try to combine Constraction and system together. It kind of comes down to displaying and mocking with Lego.
There's also the option of selling.
Yeah, you could also sell. I did actually sell at BrickFet. They had like a yard sale. It was in a hallway of the hotel. It's not really a yard at all, but was where any of the exhibitors could just sell their stuff to anyone else. And so I bagged up a lot of the pieces I had and actually sold a lot of them to Lego Master. So now he has the golden Ignika that I had from Tiamat Nui.
On the topic of alt models, I just wanted to quickly bring up this a while back. I wanted to make an alt model of Obi-Wan, which working with Star Wars Constructions is fun because it really gives you a challenge, not only because of the whole combo model or alt model thing, but also the fact that they're really designed to be humanoid figures, and it's kind of difficult to make them into non-humanoid figures.
I wonder if you could ever use the head for any mock that isn't a humanoid. I can't think of a way that you would be able to finagle it. That's pretty cool, you know, like remaking it into your own droid, I guess. What do you call it?
I call it the Nawibo.
Oh, good. That's creative. That's very
Obi-Wan. It's funny. I've seen people work with like helmets and stuff like that with Star Wars Construction. Like the Darth Vader helmet, there was a guy who made like a Yoshi type mock out of that a while back, and I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I guess if there's like a uniform color or a thing that follows a pattern that you can extend into a mock, then I guess they could work. But for ones that have like really clearly defined facial features, it would be quite hard. Unless I guess you could try to hide the facial features and just like use parts of it. Maybe if you just wanted to use Obi-Wan's beard or something in a mock, I don't know why. You could try to figure out how to hide it.
I suppose it would be tricky. Should try that sometime. My most recent combo model, I combined Chi Gorzan with Baze Malbus.
Yeah, that actually looks like really metal, you know? It's got that face. I don't know. It reminds me of a Metroid character, that kind of visor, I guess.
It was slightly inspired by Dume guy from...
Oh. Yeah, I guess I can sort of see that.
I started off with just the helmet, and then I was like, I wonder what it would look like if I added these pieces on here, if it would like actually look like hair. And then I put it on there, and it looked like hair. I was like, that's good enough.
That spiky hair.
I don't know how the hair goes through the helmet, but it does.
You don't need to question it. It's it's best anime.
It is funny though to see like the progression of mocks as you work through them. I started off with putting the Gorzan Onua / Hulk's chest piece over the body piece there. Just putting it over the main Star Wars torso thing, and like I had Baze Malbus's head, and it was just gonna be like a generic dude guy, and I was like, this is kind of boring.
Yeah, I think you've done a pretty great job of combining the Star Wars into like models that I wish we had more of. With the Star Wars Constraction, they have these head molds, but I really wish that they had actual components to them, sort of like the really old Star Wars Technic models before Bionicle, I think. Was it around the time Bionicle was out? I forget.
Yeah, those.
You know, even though that C-3PO is slightly terrifying, it kind of stares into your soul, it would be
Oh gosh.
cool.
I had the Super Battle Droid one.
Oh
from
yeah,
that
Super
line.
Battle Droid is sweet.
Yeah. I actually took it apart for pieces and then never put it back together, and I'm pretty sure there's no way to get everything back at this point. Remember that one really, 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 really terrible Bionicle-ish mock that I posted? It was called like Untitled Mock or something. Most of the pieces for that came from the Super Battle Droid.
Oh, that is beauty right there. That is amazing. I love it.
Oh. I see.
Isn't it the best mock you've ever seen? It's even better than Nick Bluetooth.
This is cool, I guess. Like I kinda
It's not.
I don't know.
It's not.
I think my original version of it may have been better. That might also just be my memory wanting to think I was better than it actually was.
So yeah, that has been the Modcast. Woo, we did it. Hooray. Episode 48. Just gonna put that right at the end.
Goodbye.